Now we have our keynote speaker for the afternoon session, Mr. Eric Lee. Eric is the CEO and founder of Hub, a project working to create a new trust protocol on blockchain. Eric was the co-founder of LinkedIn and served as its founding CTO. And Eric himself is a four-time serial entrepreneur. Today, Eric would like to share his insights in how crypto will become mainstream by 2025. Welcome, Eric.
Good afternoon, ni hao. So today I'm going to talk about a topic that should be very important to us all in terms of bringing crypto to the mainstream. And we all want to see this technology succeed. And I'd like to share some ideas about how we might be able to do that. So first, a little bit about me. I was one of the co-founders of LinkedIn back in 2002. I was the founding CTO of the company, so my background is definitely in the technology area, and it was a very fascinating journey. LinkedIn has become one of the most successful social platforms on the planet. It currently has more than 500 million users. It has a real business model around recruiting, not necessarily based on advertising. And a couple of years ago, it was sold to Microsoft for some billions of dollars. And so it was quite a successful platform. However, when you look underneath the covers, you start to see maybe some weaknesses or some opportunities for improving on LinkedIn and also other social platforms. And so some of those examples happen to be the information that LinkedIn has about its users. The profiles are sometimes maybe misleading. LinkedIn has gotten very successful in terms of getting people to enter information into the network about themselves. But that also introduces the opportunity for falsifying that information. And so on LinkedIn, you never know whether there's a fake profile or part of a profile that is fake as well. One of the other problems that we discovered also at LinkedIn was that people tend to contact each other quite a bit, right? Contact and offer their services, advertise for them, and that results in kind of a spammy type of communication. So this, in regards to its success, it's become very successful, but at the same time, it's revealed some opportunities for improvement. And I think today, with a lot of the talk around Facebook and data breaches and fake news, all of that is all the more relevant. So I want to talk a little bit about my journey into crypto and how I got to here to talk to you about blockchain and crypto today. So as we were beginning the journey about a year ago to really understand and talk about blockchain and hopefully do something productive in blockchain, there was definitely a lot of news about what had happened on Facebook and the fake news and the very important decisions that are being made, in this case political decisions around that information. And really, if you look a little bit deeper, those issues have to do with a lack of trust, right? A lack of trust in the information, or maybe even misplaced trust. How do you understand the trustworthiness of information and the trustworthiness of the people who are giving you that information on which very important decisions are made? And so when I began understanding or trying to understand blockchain, there were a lot of new concepts, right? Blockchain, tokens, decentralization, consensus, proof of work, proof of stake, security versus utility tokens. There's a lot of really very new concepts to understand. And as I started reading more, and as I started to read everything that I could, talk to people and learn from the community, all of these concepts really began to fit together like some very amazing puzzle pieces. And it really dawned on me that there were some very amazing and very clever concepts in crypto. So I can't go on too much without showing you this. This is a Bitcoin that's on fire. And usually there's a couple ways to interpret something on fire. Usually it's doing well. In this case, it's not doing so well today. So there's been some very interesting fluctuations in the market around Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as well. And I think the reason why you're finding this today is because I think people are trying to understand the underlying value of these tokens, right? And so for Bitcoin in particular, it's something that has been in the press for a long time, and people understand it as digital gold. It's sort of a reserve currency, and the value that Bitcoin has is the value that people believe that Bitcoin has. And then there's also a lot of other currencies that are being born, things like Ethereum, many others. And we're very much in the early days of tokens, where a lot of the underlying value behind those tokens are still being established. And so one of the things that I'm very excited about is really the value that is getting established around these tokens in the coming years. And hopefully, as that happens, more and more stability will come to all of these cryptocurrencies that we know of. So I want to take a minute just to talk about maybe for people, because there's been a lot of news about Bitcoin, but maybe there isn't much understanding yet about this kind of underlying technology called blockchain. And so I want to spend some time to just talk about blockchain a little bit and why I believe it's even more interesting and even more valuable than some of the cryptocurrencies that are going on. So first of all, Bitcoin and blockchain are two different things, right? Bitcoin is a currency, and blockchain is a technology that enables it. And so I think that a lot of people struggle to understand blockchain, and I know that I did. And so I'm going to try to explain it in as simple of a way as I can. So we've heard a lot about ledgers. We've heard a lot about cryptography. What are those things? And so the simplest way that I'm going to try to explain it is with this graphic. So there is a reason why it's called blockchain, and the reason why blockchain works the way that it does is this idea that when you put something onto a blockchain, which is a database, when you store something on a database, it's hard to tamper with. You can't change the information once you've recorded it. And so in the blockchain world, they have this. There is this concept called immutability, which is the idea of not being able to change something. And for me, this is the fundamental reason why blockchain is so valuable and so disruptive and so innovative. And what does that let you do? There's a very bright guy who many years ago spoke at the World Economic Forum, and his name was Don Tapscott. And he talked about the difference between the Internet of Information and the Internet of Value. Information, as we all know it, Internet is really great at disseminating information, sharing information, allowing people to share information. But value is actually more valuable than information, because it is something, by definition, that people value. And this idea of immutability is the thing that allows people to store things of value on the blockchain. And so what is of value? There's a lot of things that are of value. So first of all, currency has value, and so that's why you see Bitcoin as being the very first application, if you will, of blockchain that allows you to store value on a blockchain. But there are many other things that are also very valuable that you can store on blockchain. For example, energy has value, so being able to coordinate an energy market using the blockchain is very interesting. Real estate has value as well. So a lot of assets have value, and so now you can start to actually take the internet and start recording things and tracking things that have value. And so blockchain is really perfect for storing value and also for transferring value. And immediately you go from an internet that has information, maybe faulty information, to be able to really store things that people really care about and have value to them. So I believe that blockchain is one of the most interesting technologies to come in a generation. If you look at computing in the last 50 or 60 years, the internet got started pretty early, back in the last century. I don't know if anybody was around when computers were a group full of people operated by special people called computers, and they worked on these mainframes. And in this day and age, with the iPhone, you have something that is more than 10 million times more powerful than those boxes that now sit in a museum. So progress on technology and the internet has really advanced quite a lot in the last 50 to 60 years. So, one might ask what's going to happen with blockchain in the year 2025. So I do believe that blockchain, because of its ability to store value, becomes one of the most transformational technologies in a generation. And I was around during the .com times. I saw the sense of possibilities during that time, and we're on the cusp of another really amazing generational technology disruption. So the gold sparkles in 2025. It is meant to represent the magical things that are going to happen with blockchain in the next few years. So I want to talk about how we're going to take crypto and make it mainstream. That's what I promised to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about the project hub that we're working on now. So this is a picture of some basket weavers in Kenya, and I'm sure they make really fine baskets. And here's a picture of one of the baskets that they've made. Certainly, I wonder how many baskets they do sell, because they can probably make a lot of baskets and probably don't have the ability to sell more baskets because of their lack of access to the market and the rest of the world. So what's interesting to me for blockchain is that today there are about 7 billion people in the world, and only half of them are connected to the internet. So there's about 3.5 billion people still that are unconnected to the internet. And a lot of actually political conflicts, in my opinion, arise from the lack of economic opportunities. So if we can give people more access to economic opportunities, we potentially have a more prosperous and hopefully peaceful world. So in the blockchain world, there's a lot of talk about bringing the unbanked into the fold and making them available for services around the services that banks would naturally give. But I'm very interested in the unconnected, which represents about half the world's population, compared to the unbanked, which represents about a third of the world's population. So the reason why I show this picture is because if we can connect these Kenyan basket weavers into the internet, we for sure are going to reach the mainstream. And I believe that blockchain is going to be the way to do that. So imagine if those who made really good baskets, right, became known for making really good baskets around the world, not just in a local village. Wouldn't you like to have one of these baskets as well? So being able to connect the other half of the world and bringing them on board with economic opportunities is a really useful thing to do. And I believe that that's what blockchain has the potential to let us do. And of course, this doesn't apply just to baskets, it applies to anything, whether people are selling products or whether they're selling services. Those are really valuable things the more that they have access to the market that exists. So that's really the opportunity that we have to make available connections between people who are not connected, as well as people who are already connected but would like to have more economic opportunity. So how are we going to reach the mainstream? We need to look at use cases that bring value to the people of the world. So there are a couple of key words there. Value, which means really taking this technology and identifying real-world problems that people care about and will bring value to their daily lives. And then use cases, which means that there are many, many different situations where blockchain technology can really be applied to create value for those people. And so if we do those two things, if we take this technology and we do those two things, we'll definitely make a big dent in terms of taking crypto and bringing it to the mainstream. So in our case, with the project that we have, we're really concerned about reputation. So, why would you say that reputation is relevant to the blockchain? Well, it turns out that reputation is actually valuable. That the more reputation that you have, the more value that you have, the more access to economic opportunity that you have. So imagine the world's peer-to-peer marketplaces, the world's sharing economy, the world's industries, all being able to accommodate people who have reputation, who can get access to greater economic opportunity. And further imagine, if you will, the ability for them to take their reputation data and to put that on a blockchain so that they can benefit from the activities and economic opportunities that exist from that. So if you think about that, and you think about how big these segments are in terms of the peer-to-peer marketplaces and the sharing economies, and how that's going to be growing so much in the next few years, and how those are really trillions of dollars of industries. And if you can imagine that maybe just 10% of that activity is facilitated on a blockchain, then you're getting to some very interesting use cases where the technology itself really impacts mainstream and brings a lot of value to the mainstream. So we talk a lot about trust in our project, Hub project, and trust is really the underlying foundation of the economy. And so that's why I believe that actually the blockchain has the potential to bring a lot of value in the next few years to the mainstream in terms of how we can enable people to have more trust and to store their value reputation data onto a blockchain. So that's kind of the big idea. There's many ways to engender trust on a blockchain, but I believe that's how we're going to be able to bring a lot of value and people onto the mainstream. To find out more, this is our project website. We have a project called Hub, a website, hubtoken.org, and a Telegram group as well. Thanks very much.
you.